Well, I haven't been in serious trouble with the media for
About
3 days, I think, so it's probably time to do something. I expected the attention around me to dissipate 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, it doesn't stop. And I can't figure it out, really. I think maybe it's because the media types, I mean, some of them have supported me, don't get me wrong, but they can't really figure me out because what I'm doing isn't really political. It's psychological, and I am a clinical psychologist. I've been writing these books to help people. There's other reasons as well. They have to make everything political, and I don't quite fit that mold, and so I don't think they know what to do with me. And
They want you to say I'm left or I'm right, and you're like, listen, I'm neither. I'm watching both sides and making my own decisions. That's how I see you. I don't know if that's true or not, but I see you in a very similar, not that we're on equal footing, but I see you in the same way I see things. It's not, I don't pick a team here.
If this is what's going on with colleges and if they're controlling working professionals so that the working professionals have to work in a way that isn't truthful, I mean, how do you fight back against that? At what point do you just stop playing in that game?
you know, people have asked me that too, why don't you just give up your license? And I would say, well, because I wouldn't be giving it up. I would be allowing it to be taken away from me. Like if I decide in a year that I don't want to be a licensed clinical psychologist because the whole damn profession has become corrupt, that's a whole different issue than letting this pack of craven commissar cowards utilize the complaints of random people online to justify their own envy and desire to prosecute and then fold in the face of that opposition. It's like, I'm not going to do that. The only thing you have in a complex situation is the truth. That's all you have. That's why you have to abide by the truth, you know, because when things get complex around you, all you have there that's solid ground is the truth. And so the reason you abide by the truth is so that you can say what you have to say about what you've done and who you are, and you can do that under impossibly difficult circumstances, and possibly that will sustain you. And I'm still not sure that in the most fundamental manner, that's not the appropriate thing to do. But because I'm not sure, and because at least technically my understanding at the moment is that that I wouldn't be abiding by the dictates of the college, I'm still more than willing to play by the rules. And those rules might be right, you know, I don't know what to do with that, because under normal circumstances, I can understand why the anonymity of the complainant publicly would be maintained, right? Because it stops people who have a legitimate grievance from being intimidated by those against whom they have the grievance. But those rules only apply when people aren't weaponizing the colleges. And as soon as the colleges are weaponized, when you can manipulate the bureaucracy into being a club for your viewpoint, then what constitutes ethical behavior on the part of a defendant starts to become murky. And that's also part of what makes this stressful.
Yeah, well, I think just ignoring the people who actually did the complaints is the right way to go, because they don't matter. And if they weren't there, somebody else would be making the same kind of complaint. It's a college issue.
Right, but that's a weird argument, right? Because, you may well be right, and that's obviously what we've decided to do too, but there is part of me that also thinks, no, you know, any given individual can cause a lot of trouble if they set out to do that. And the idea that you shouldn't be responsible for your accusations is questionable, especially when what you're essentially doing is levying the equivalent of a legal charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the right option. It also, I think, just on a more selfish level, I think it'll be easier, given the fact that this is going to be a battle for a while, and it might end badly. I don't know how it's going to end. I don't trust Canada. It would be better for you emotionally not to be involved in a personal way as much as you can. So like, forget who the people who made the complaints are, even though they're probably despicable human beings. There's tons of despicable human beings out there. Better to just ignore them and tell everybody what's going on. And ideally have a backup plan. Like if they do come for your license, can you just, I mean, I assume getting a license.
Yeah, well, it's hard to know, you know, it's hard to know if it's better to ignore them. There's lots of psychological studies about what people do to cheaters in games. And people are so motivated to punish cheaters that they'll give up some of their own privileges for the right to do so. And some of that's actually salutary. Well, look, Michaela, if you let the cheaters get away with it, they dominate and take everything. That's the psychopathic niche. That's why it even exists biologically, is because you can get somewhere with exploitation. And you particularly get somewhere with exploitation if the people you are exploiting don't object. And so you actually have a moral obligation to object, you know, to not let people get away with breaking the rules. When people come after me, well, they can't just be let off the hook, right? So it's very, but I think we've walked this through quite appropriately, is that no, I should really be concentrating on the college and not the individual complainants. I should be concentrating on the college in a way that has broad public significance, because it shouldn't just be about me, it's about a broader social problem. That we should use the truth and public exposure, transparency, to mount the best defense, and we should all keep our heads while doing so. But there's no better strategy than that, but it's a tight rope to walk, that's for sure. And the other problem is, Mick, it's so easy to slip off this. You know, it's like when I've been in the most tendentious interviews that have been directed at me, Helen Lewis comes to mind in particular, every single comment that some of these journalists have made is a trap, right? And the trap is, I think I could goad you into saying something that would be impulsive and aggressive enough to blacken your reputation permanently, and therefore to destroy your life in some fundamental sense, just so that it would redound to my moral credit. And if you all listening think that I'm being paranoid, you go read Nellie Bowles' apology for what she did as a New York Times journalist, and you tell me that this isn't true, because she came right out and said that's exactly what she did when she worked at the New York Times. Now, she thinks she's learned better, but I would say if you already went that far in that direction, you have an awful lot of learning to do. And I would be very hesitant to claim you've now learned your lesson and are a good person. You know, there's some things that it takes a long time to come back from, and that's certainly one of them. I would happily destroy someone's reputation just so that my articles got more attention online. It's like, oh yeah, really? And you knew that too. You didn't just do it unconsciously. You did it consciously, and you did it repeatedly. And you did it for the New York Times. And now you're sorry. It's like, 10 years in a convent flagellating yourself might make you sorry. Maybe. Like, I've watched people in my clinical practice try to walk back from significant moral errors.